Who are they? Isn't he in charge of the country?
No, Congress appropriates the funds.
Well, so he can't get Congress to get that money and use it for something else?
What bothers me about this, though, and it's a big criticism of this administration and Democrats in general, is their messaging sucks.
I'm sorry, it murders me. I don't mean to laugh. Those are honestly, they're the dumbest people. It's amazing to me that they drive a lot of our political conversation in this society. But let's talk to Adrian about that, about the border and what the right believes, what the left believes, what anyone believes. Joining me now, staff writer and a great one for Timcast News, my friend Adrian Norman. Okay, Adrian, Biden administration comes out after stalling the whole thing, says, hey, we're gonna build some wall. It doesn't work and it sucks, but I have to. What is this? I'll tell you how I interpret it. I interpret it as the black community, the urban black community, is angry about illegal immigration, and the Democrat Party needs them to be motivated coming into an election year. And this reeks to me as a pat on the head, so they just shut up and go away. Am I interpreting that wrong?
I don't think you are, man. I mean, the big question that I have, and again, the question that she raised about the messaging had to do with the timing, right? Well, it had to do with the fact that this was appropriated funds by Congress from 2019. Next year is the 2024 election. So the question on my mind immediately was, why now? Why all of a sudden are they interested in at least feigning like they're interested in border security when this entire time we've seen an unmitigated disaster at our southern border? The only thing that's changed is that liberal cities are now being flooded with illegal migrants from cities from states like Texas and Florida, and they're being overrun. And now they have to deal with this problem in their own backyard, which they never wanted to do, they never anticipated to do. The idea of being a sanctuary city was always just smoke and mirrors. It was just a sort of a talking point and a PR stunt to placate their voters. But now that they actually have to grapple with the reality of what it's like to have to provide for hundreds of thousands of people who aren't really supposed to be in this country in the first place, but you're statutorily obligated to provide for these people to the cost of New York City is projecting $12 billion over 3 years. And now the chickens are coming home to roost and they don't like what they're seeing.
$12 billion over 3 years. Adrian, if you believe that Democrats want the border open, and half the loser Republicans too, by the way, if you believe they want the border open, how can a nation, any nation, large, small, powerful, weak, survive that? No nation can survive importing mass quantities of poor people from any part of the planet, whether they're just looking for work or terrorists or who knows. Doesn't matter who they are. No nation could survive that. We can't survive like this.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, even before this crisis. So look, since Biden's been in office, we've had 7.2 million illegal aliens flood into the United States. All right, 7.2 million in just 3 years. The last fiscal year alone, we saw more than under all 4 years of the Trump administration combined. So nobody can say this isn't a crisis. According to the Federation for American Immigration Reform, FAIR, the cost of illegal migration, and this is before the surge that came under Biden, Americans were spending $150 billion per year. I mean, we're up in arms over Ukraine, and we've only given Ukraine about $113 billion in aid, right? Illegal aliens cost this country $150 billion a year before Biden's migrant surge. So that number is going to go up to 160, 170, or $180 billion every single year. This is something that's unsustainable. We're going to have to print more money for this. We're going to see inflation increase. We can get into the crime issues. We can get into the other issues that we're seeing and get in some of these other cities right now that are having massive hysteria over what's happening. But something has to change. And the thing I think that frustrates me the most is that neither party, neither Republicans nor Democrats, seem to be serious about actually solving this problem.
Why aren't they serious, Adrian? Okay, let's set aside the commie scum for a second. Why aren't Republicans at least pretending to be serious about it? In all seriousness, no, we just talked about how a nation can't survive. We can't afford it. Even if you think we can survive, we can't afford it. It's dividing us because we don't share common values at all when you import other cultures that aren't similar to your culture. Why don't Republicans care?
Well, I've heard several theories. I mean, a large chunk of the Republican donor base actually wants the cheap labor, so they want to keep the border open. But also, I think it's sort of a general theme in politics. If you don't fix a problem, you can continue to fundraise off of it and campaign on it, right? It's like what we're seeing in California with the homeless crisis. I mean, the homeless czar out there gets something like $450,000 a year. Do you think they're actually going to fix the problem when there's that much of a paycheck associated with it? So the overall incentive structure in terms of our politics and what actually rewards you in this country is skewed. So there's no incentive to actually fix the problem and do the right thing for the American people.
State employee in charge of homeless people makes 450 G's a year. You can't make it up in this country, I'll tell you. All right, I don't want to overblow, because this would be tempting for me to do, any potential divisions with Democrats. But, well, here is Eric Adams.
We can't have a rule that one can come from anywhere on the globe and come to New York City and remain in New York City as long as they want, and taxpayers must pick up the cost.
Adrian, do we have tensions coming? I know there's already simmering tensions there between Adams and Biden. Biden visits New York, does not sit down with Eric Adams. That is the biggest sign in the world in politics. They are having issues with each other. Eric Adams can't print money. Joe Biden, because of his commie overlords, can't secure the border. Are we going to see divisions here?
I mean, we're already seeing divisions, and I'm less concerned with division between the senior levels of the political class. I couldn't care less about whether Biden gets along with Eric Adams. My concern is the actual American people on the ground who are suffering, who have needs that need to be met, who have economic issues, who are dealing with inflation, who are dealing with high gas prices, who now have to deal with the fact that, like in Chicago, we're seeing city officials dole out millions and millions of dollars to, again, shelter people who circumvented our laws to come here and basically demand that we provide for them. Meanwhile, people need better jobs. People need better housing. People need to figure out how to get out from under this debt. And these communities need real help. And they're not getting that help because the government is picking and choosing favorites. They're playing favorites with other people rather than taking care of the people who elected them to represent them in their own communities. And it's sad to watch. So the division is already here. I can't imagine it's going to get any better because, look, at the end of the day, even if they were to enact border security tomorrow, we got 7.2 million people who are already here who aren't going to be leaving anytime soon. Those people, again, statutorily have to be provided for. So it's just it's a huge mess, bro. I don't know how we're going to get out of it.
Do you think normal people, not political people like you and me, do you think normal people on both sides are starting to wake up to the fact that the political class in this country really does despise them? They despise us all. Are they catching on to that? And I know normal people who are busy and have lives and jobs and bills to pay, they don't get caught up in all this stuff like we do, but it sure seems like they should be catching on at this point in time.
It seems like more people are waking up, man. I mean, this issue is a big issue. You can see it in things like with the transing of the kids and people advocating for giving mastectomies to healthy 14-year-old girls, removing their breast tissue because they have a bad day and think they might be a boy. We're chopping off the wee-wees of boys who have bad days and think they might be a girl when all they need to do is leave them alone and 90% of them will grow out of it. These are insane policies, right? In California, they just passed a law where if you don't affirm your kid's gender, the state can come take your kid away from you. I mean, this is insanity. And yeah, I think the average person is starting to wake up to it and starting to say, hey, you know what? This is less and less about left and right and more about good versus evil. And I know we should typically try to stay away from that type of incendiary language, but I mean, there's no other way to put it at this point. The mask is coming off. These people have pushed too hard. I actually got to give you a plug because you addressed a lot of this in your most recent book, The Anti-Communist Manifesto. You get into not only how this happened, but you get into the details of why it happened and how this infiltration metastasized inside the United States. So shouts to you for actually having the balls to address this head on and in as much detail as you did. It's a great book. I recommend anybody else get it. I don't normally do plugs on other people's shows for other people's stuff, but you actually tackled this in a fantastic way. So
much appreciated, my brother. I did the best I could for an idiot Marine. Adrian, thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.